Hello, everyone. Rob Guest from football.london here, and welcome to the latest episode of Golden Guest Talk Tottenham, sponsored by NordVPN. Joining me today, it's Alasdair and Lee Wilmot. How are you both?
Yeah, good. Apologies to everyone for not having a podcast last week. It kind of just one of those rare ones where Lee and I were both off as well. So Guesty was left all on his own to work, and it didn't quite fit with the podcast, unfortunately. But we are back with a vengeance with, one hell of a game and press conference to talk about and discuss. It was crazy. But no, good to be back. And I hope you're well, Guesty, after being left all alone.
Yep, joint holiday, was it?
Oh, yeah, we had a great time together. It was lovely.
How are you, Lee? Good?
I'm very well, thank you. I thought there wasn't much for you guys to talk about this week, so I thought I'd come on and help out.
Yeah, so much to discuss following Tottenham's 2-0 defeat against Manchester City on Tuesday evening. It's a result that has seen Tottenham miss out on the Champions League place. Aston Villa are in fourth now and will be playing in Europe's Premier competition next season. Spurs do look good for a Europa League place and just need 1 point on Sunday against Sheffield United to guarantee fifth spot. There's only one place to start anyway, and that's Ange Postecoglou's press conference. Big talking points to come from that game. He, just said it how it is, basically. He had a lot to get off his chest after that 2-0 defeat against Man City. You were in the press conference, Ali. Do you want to, give everyone a bit of an insight into it?
Yeah, he was absolutely steaming. Honestly, it was like, I just kind of seeing a boxer maybe just before they're about to go into a bout. Absolutely he was just so ready to kind of not pick a fight with anyone. Maybe a boxer's the wrong analogy, but just ready to blow his top at the right question. And of course, as always, I provided the right question to allow him to blow his top. We knew something was going to happen because we were getting word from his radio and broadcast interviews that they were quite short, to put it mildly. His BBC interview was all of 44 seconds. So we knew he was not in the finest of moods. But obviously, the beauty of a press conference situation is rather than one poor soul having to try and get something out of someone, we can all really try from different angles and different attempts to try and get him to open up. And he started it actually quite normally. The first couple of questions were just your general kind of match questions. And I wouldn't say, the answers, especially after a defeat, were incredibly short. So maybe there was a feeling of, okay, all right, maybe he's not going to quite go the way his whole demeanour is saying he's going to. And then, I stepped in to kind of throw a spanner into the Postecoglou works. And it was a simple enough question because, as I'm sure we'll discuss, I think we were all quite surprised at how well Spurs played. Spurs were really good in the night, tactically set up very well. Were it not for two essentially defensive slips and a whole host of missed chances or really good goalkeeping, I think Spurs come away with a win that creates a very interesting kind of situation for everyone. So I kind of just asked, could you see at least a foundation within that performance for a lot of the things that you want to bring in next season? Because I felt the football was really good. They played under pressure against the best team, probably, arguably, well, I would say in the world, but they didn't make it through in the Champions League today. But the best team in the Premier League right now, likely to be four-time champions. And expecting him to say, no, I think there's something there to work on. Oh, no, he didn't. He went down the route of, no, I think the last 48 hours have revealed to me that the foundations are fairly fragile, mate. So, and he just said so, and just kind of left it hanging in the air. And it was like, we're not finishing there. And that just started everyone. We all kind of went in with various questions. I asked another couple. Some of the other guys asked some as well, just trying to get to the bottom of exactly what had kind of wound him up so much. One of my questions, which I think was the one that probably gave us a little bit more of an insight, was I just asked, was it inside, outside the club? Where has he seen these kind of fragile foundations? And the answer came back, outside, inside, everywhere. It's been an interesting exercise. And then he went on about talking about going back to the drawing board and having to tweak the way he does stuff. And it was fascinating because I think a bit was aimed at the fans, although he never directly really said that. I think I got the impression that maybe people internally had surprised him this week. Whether that's to do with the attitudes towards Arsenal potentially winning the league, I don't know. The only people, funnily enough, I don't think it was directed at was the players. He kept kind of praising the players and the way they played. So, yeah, it was a fascinating. It was one of those that had a bit of Conte vibes, a little bit of the Southampton final press conference without as directly. Conte's explosion that day at St Mary's ranks up there as one of the best press conferences I've ever been in terms of kind of what came out of it. But that was Conte just absolutely exploding. There was no control. He was letting everything out. There's some of the journalists do amazing impressions of the way he spoke that day. They're absolutely fantastic. But with Ange, it was a very controlled, deliberate, I'm going to let out a bit of information and then you guys can work out what I mean kind of thing. But equally fascinating. As a journalist, all kind of football fan side of you switches off a little bit and you go very much into work mode and you're kind of out thinking, wow, there's so much we can take from that. I mean, what did it look like from the outside watching on? Because I think Sky started to loop clips of it, didn't they, from the presser? I think I saw that.
Yeah, they did. There were a few clips that came out. It was I admired him, I think, really, because watching on from home, and I think Gessie and I have already kind of spoken about this before we came on the pod, and watching on TV, it did feel like it was a kind of a dead rubber, essentially. There probably weren't 60,000 people in the stadium. It was probably, I can't remember what the attendance was. It must have been around 55, something like that, was it?
61,000.
It was 61, was it?
Yeah.
It certainly didn't sound like there were 61,000 people
Absolutely.
in there. So when you've got that atmosphere, he even spoke about it, didn't he, in the press conference as well later on, saying when we're good and when we scored late goals, the fans are the ones that have motivated us, brought us on to score those late goals. That was never going to be the case on Tuesday. It was so quiet in there. Watching it on TV, it was all knew it was going to be a weird game beforehand anyway. And yeah, you made the point there about he didn't focus on the players. I don't think you can accuse the players of phoning it in as such. I thought they were excellent on Tuesday night. I thought we played really well. And particularly in the first half. And yeah, I thought we should have gone 1 or 2 goals up, really. The fans entitled to their own opinions, aren't they? Is it small club mentality that we want to focus on Arsenal not winning the league rather than our own ambitions of getting in the top 4 and playing Champions League football next season? I think you can make an argument for that. The rivalry is huge, so the fans are entitled to say, well, we don't want Arsenal to win the league. There's not much for us to play. There was something for us to play for, but there wasn't much for us to play for. So yeah, you can understand that. The thing that got me was inside the club. When he made that comment about inside the club, that's worrying for me as a fan, that there are those discussions and those little water cooler conversations perhaps that Ange's heard and people have said while they're in the building, and that will obviously has riled him up no end, because you just can't have that. I've spoken to a couple of my Arsenal supporting friends in the last few days, obviously, just saying, as journalists, we obviously want sound bites. We want Ange to go off and say these things. It's great for us. It's great for the website. It's great for people to come and read what he's saying and going for it, essentially. But in the build up, we want him to say stuff, but it is stupid, really, asking a football manager, oh, the fans want you to kind of throw this game. You're going to throw it. It's like, absolutely not. Why? They're professional football players. They go out there to win. They're not going to throw a game of football, are they?
What did people expect he was going to say?
Exactly. I know. So, yeah.
Bryan Gil's in goal.
It's great. The fans can say what they want and think what they want. They obviously showed it inside the stadium, which doesn't help the players. But I thought the players did a really good job of ignoring what was going on inside the stadium and playing their own game, essentially, considering the form we've been in the last few weeks. But yeah, inside the club, it's a worry, isn't it? What did you make of that, Guesty?
Yeah, certainly a worry. Ange is a winner. He's proven that throughout his managerial career. He wants to build a winning culture at Spurs, and if you're hearing people at the club, maybe saying, "Oh, put out a weakened team so Arsenal don't win the league," it's just totally
I
wrong.
presume it was jokey. I presume it was like jokes around the club. That's how I'd imagine it, rather than I don't think Daniel Levy was saying, put Bryan Gil in goal or anything. But I think, in essence, you would imagine for Spurs, especially the higher ups, they probably want the money that comes from Champions League football more than anything.
Yeah, but even still, even if you're joking, it's just like
Yeah.
the wrong attitude. You're going out to win, and
100%.
yeah, the players on the night were brilliant. I thought that was one of Tottenham's best performances for quite some time.
Ironically.
Yeah, and it's one of these, I think, for me, when you look at it in black and white, it probably is small club mentality, because it's some fans maybe would rather pass up the opportunity for a chance of Champions League qualification to stop Arsenal winning the league. And, Ange said it numerous times in press conferences before, basically you can't tell fans what to do. They have their own opinions, and whether or not that's right or wrong, viewed by some, that's their opinion at the end of the day. And I'm sure many wanted Arsenal not to win the league. It's just the mentality for me. Surely you just want Tottenham to win every game regardless, because Spurs, last time they won the trophy, 2008, it's not been a good couple of years for them in the Premier League. You want the club to progress, and they have got a manager now with a winning mentality, and he wants them to win regardless of what it means for other clubs. His sole focus is on Tottenham and getting them to where he wants to be and where he believes they should be in the table.
It's one of those, like, sorry, Ali.
No, go for it.
This game was not going to define who won the title. Just because of where it is in the season doesn't define who wins the title. Whoever is top of the league at the end of the season has deserved it over 38 games. If this game had been 4 weeks ago, no one would have been looking at it, because there would have been 2 or 3 games afterwards that Arsenal could have potentially slipped up or whatever. I've said before that I dislike fixture release day, because everyone hypes up fixture release day, and it's kind of like, well, everyone has to play each other twice. It doesn't really matter. And yeah, just because this game was the penultimate game of the season, it wouldn't have been the defining fixture in why Arsenal would or wouldn't have won the title. Excuse me. It would have been because they've been the best team over 38 years. Thankfully, it doesn't look like they're going to be the best team over 38 games, but there we go.
Yeah, well, you actually said 38 years, though.
38 years, wow.
Yeah, I don't think they've been that good for that long. But, people kind of know my thoughts. I've said it in the last week or so. But, yeah, I get it. I get it where the fan stuff comes from, 100%. I understand. Well, we all know various rivalries. We're both, all three of us are fans of clubs that are slap bang in the middle of very intense rivalries. And I get it. And I know that it is rubbish to go in the next day and you've got the bragging rights if you've lost, and the other team, and especially if it's the league title. I get that. Personally, I couldn't ever wish my team to lose. I just can't. I don't know why. It's just not in my kind of DNA. I just can't do it. I'm the kind of guy that even if my team are losing 5-0, I am still sitting there watching them, whether it be on TV or in the stadium. I'm not going to switch it off or walk away. Perhaps that's kind of, maybe that's a deficiency on my part. I'm looking to be tortured or something. I don't know. But, I can't do that. So, I don't know. The atmosphere was a weird one inside the stadium. It was strange. It was pre-kickoff slightly noisier than a lot of us expected. I think we were a little bit like, okay, this isn't quite. And like you said, you saying that you thought it was going to be about 55,000. I think a lot of us, we saw before the game, a lot of people were putting the tickets, I think, on a ticket exchange and things like that. I think a lot of people came from abroad because if people aren't aware, I'm out in Sweden right now. I'm going to watch Lucas Bergvall tonight playing. When I was coming out at Stansted, there were quite a few Spurs fans going back to different countries. So I wonder if a lot of them picked them up tickets on ticket exchange or something. Maybe that contributes to an atmosphere. People coming to see a game that they don't normally get to come and see, perhaps. But yeah, it started off and the noise was okay. And then it just started to really dip and become very subdued, and it became a little bit like we kind of talk of, maybe the big matches in La Liga, sorry, not the big matches, but the matches involving one of the big teams where they're looking to be entertained rather than roaring the team on. So Spurs would go forward, play some good football, and the crowd would start to get noisier. But if you were actually looking for the crowd to really roar on the team, it wasn't there like in normal games. And that created this very odd atmosphere, which I think that surprised Postecoglou. His whole narrative ahead of the game was pretty much, it's social media. Social media will make it look like that, but I don't think the people inside the stadium will be like that. So to then be confronted with that atmosphere at the stadium, I think that knocked him for six a little bit. And especially when he's put out a team really tactically, I thought tactically outthought Pep Guardiola for a lot of the game. Like I say, a couple of moments at both ends of the pitch, and he's tactically outclassed Pep. Different system, plan B, if that's what we're going to kind of go on about. He did everything actually that people kind of had criticised him for. It was quite a solid midfield as well. So many of the things, he played Mickey van der Ven at left back. He kind of did a lot of weirdly the crowd pleasing things that probably certain members of the crowd didn't want. It was like, not today. But yeah, I think that atmosphere knocked him for six. And then obviously we'll talk about the altercation with the fan behind the dugout, which I think really gave an insight into how wound up he was by the whole atmosphere. But then, yeah, like you say, the people inside the club that you kind of alluded to, we don't know who that is. We don't know whether that is higher ups, which I'd imagine it's not, like I say, because of the whole Champions League aspect of it, or whether it's just staff around the building. That's probably what I imagine. It's more likely just various people or a couple of people joking about things. Whether it's coaching staff, I'd be surprised. But yeah, it just was so annoyed. And it was the question I asked him, I think it was my third question. I said, has what you've seen then in this past 48 hours kind of steeled your resolve to do what you need to do at this football club? And he just said, it was kind of almost ominous, I already know what I want to do. It's just I've got to make some adjustments to how I do it. And it's like, it sounded very much like the gloves are off. I think we'll see changes, not only in the playing squad. I wonder if we'll see some real changes behind the scenes as well at Spurs. Because I think he was quite confident to a degree that a lot of his beliefs were permeating now throughout the building. And if he's had a situation where people are kind of even jokingly suggesting that Spurs shouldn't win the game because they don't want Arsenal to get the title, yeah, obviously as Guesty said, the winning mentality isn't there. Look, I do understand a lot of the fan sentiment. There's a lot of fan anger afterwards. They didn't like to be told off, even though he didn't technically tell them off. And I get that. Some of the responses were a bit daft. One of the dafter ones that I kept seeing, he doesn't understand rivalry. It's like, no. The guy has been involved in probably the most fiercest rivalry in the world, I'd say. So it's right up there anyway, the Glasgow rivalry. As someone who half my family comes from Glasgow and splits the divide as well between those two clubs, I know how, quite frankly, vicious that rivalry is at times. And obviously it's wrapped up in a whole lot more than just football clubs as well. So yeah, I thought that was I didn't like that kind of aspect of it. But I also understood some element. There were some people saying, why is he getting so angry now? Could he have not been more angry after, I don't know, the Fulham defeat, the Newcastle defeat, the Chelsea-Arsenal games, things like that? What I would say to that is he just wasn't showing it publicly. But from what I understand, he was going mad behind the scenes. The players did not get an easy ride after those games at all. But yeah, it's a difficult one.
It's different though, isn't it? In terms of he's gone mad at the players for poor performances on the pitch.
Yes,
he's gone mad this time because of everything that's gone on behind the scenes. It's a different situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's a question for you, Lee, I guess, as a Spurs fan. Do you think that way of looking at it, wanting to stop the rivals, is that ever going to change?
No. That's football fandom, isn't it? It's football tribalism. It's never going to change for the fans anyway. Can he change it within the confines of the club? You'd like to think so. apart from the 5 or so Poch years, and a little bit after that, we've been in Arsenal's shadow for how long? Decades, really?
Was it 2022, something like that, before they finished above them? Yeah, I think something like that.
Was it about 94, 95 season? Was that the last time they finished above them pre-Poch? It was something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It could be, yeah.
That's where the kind of so-called small club mentality comes from, because we have been the kind of the second team in North London, when history goes back that we are the only team in North London and they came onto our patch and this, that, and the other. So you're never going to get rid of that, and I don't think anyone would want to get rid of that in football. No. That rivalry and that the kind of the tribalism that comes with it. But someone needs to come in and really overhaul Tottenham as a club. He's clearly found out in 1 week what it's like to be the Tottenham Hotspur manager, hasn't he? Really, and everything that goes with it. Yeah, that's very much what it is. The only way we're going to progress and the only way we're going to become an established big club is to rid ourselves of that within the club and say, look, this is us. We're here to be a big club. This is what we're going to do. This is the only way it's going to happen. It's my way or the highway. Let's do it, essentially. And he is the type of character you think that will do that. And he'll probably, potentially, metaphorically and physically, probably get people around the scruff of the neck in the club and say, look, this is not on. We can't carry on acting like this if we're gonna challenge the Man Cities and the Liverpools moving forward.
Question for Guesty. Just to ask, sorry, you can kind of incorporate this probably into whatever you're going to say anyway, but do you think what he's done in terms of enraging a certain section of the fan base, I don't know how big it is, I'm sure he's probably annoyed a fair few people, but I don't think as many will hold a grudge as possibly people think. But do you think it was a dangerous game, riling up the fan base or an element of the fan base?
Yeah, possibly, because results haven't been great beforehand. So obviously he's been questioned by some, especially when they've been conceding a number of goals from set pieces. And yeah, Aston Villa are qualified for the Champions League, and the reason Tottenham aren't in the top 4 isn't solely because of Tuesday night. It's because of what's happened so far in 2024. The results have been poor. Performances haven't been great. Certainly not up to the levels they were in the first 10 games of the season. So yeah, maybe it is a bit of a dangerous game, but I think that he's just taking no prisoners with what he's saying. He's saying how he sees it, and for me, he's 100% bang on. Yeah, of course, there's a number of Tottenham fans. There's thousands and thousands who want to stop Arsenal winning the league. But come on, I mean, celebrating the City goal and doing the Poznan, he's just wrong. It doesn't sit well with me at all.
If they had 3 points more, Spurs, do you think it would have been a slightly different attitude around the game?
Maybe, but the thing is, even if Spurs won against Man City on Tuesday night, they still had a decent chance of the Champions League, because I don't think Villa are going to win at Crystal Palace the way they're going at the moment. A point still would have been enough for Villa, but the way Palace are playing there, performing really well with Elise and Eze just destroying teams, and they'd be confident of getting another 3 points. So it's one of these. Spurs themselves have lost the top 4 race because of all the points they've dropped. But I'm just going to say, in terms of bragging rights, no one wants to see your rivals winning the league and doing well, etc. And everyone's been saying, just constantly gloat and gloat. But like, how long does this go on for? Because they won the league at White Hart Lane 20 years ago. Surely that was worse than, Spurs potentially giving Arsenal.
It was bad.
Yeah,
it was bad.
Giving Arsenal a chance of winning the league on Sunday. And I love how everyone's assumed that Arsenal are going to beat Everton anyway.
I wonder when that was going to come. Yeah.
Because we're doing all right. They probably will beat us, to be fair. But, I mean, that Son miss didn't really define the title race for me.
I agree.
I mean, I understand in terms of, if someone's like constantly pecking at your head like every minute of the day and just winding you up, I can understand it. But how long, I mean, for you Spurs fans, how long does it last, this bragging right? Surely after a while,
Yeah, I don't want
Bothered by
to.
it.
I don't want to annoy Spurs fans, but Arsenal are a good team. They'll
Yeah,
be
they
back
are.
up there again next year. So we could be going through this again next season. It's not going to stop. So Arsenal are here to stay, unfortunately. So we've got to get.
Oh, don't make that the title of this podcast.
No. We've got to get used to trying to challenge up there with them. And we've got to give Ange the tools and the support to do that. And like as you say there, Ali, there is a risk that he's upset some Spurs fans and turned them against him. But I think any manager's going to get that anywhere. That you're never going to have everyone on side at any point. So what does it matter? He's gone and said his thing. He's got things off his chest and said what he believes essentially. And if that turns people off, then he probably would have turned people off anyway.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Spurs have taken points off both of the title challenges this season already. It's like they've already kind of played their part in that regard. If you're going to say that one game makes a title, which I still don't believe it is, I'm absolutely in it's a 38-game season. It's as simple as that. That's how it's decided. And like Guesty said, Sean Dyche's Blue Army could pull off a shock anyway on the last day. So I don't think that kind of I didn't quite buy into the narrative as much as other people did. I did think it was strange. Even like after Sonny missed that chance, we were all looking at social media, which we don't normally, we try kind of ignore mostly social media, especially during the game and the aftermath. But I think we were all intrigued to see how it would react to the Sonny miss. And honestly, it was like all this like tweets coming out. Yes, what a miss! And this was Spurs fans. Yes, go on, Sonny, club legend and stuff like that. And it was like, I pretty much would imagine that's what Ange Postecoglou was horrified with. I get it. I kind of do. I get where it comes from. Is it something I would do? No. But I kind of get where the sentiment comes from because there's this pent-up feeling of no, please, no. Kind of. And I guess Ange kind of used the expression, I think a few weeks back, maybe a little bit more, about peering into your neighbour's backyard. And you're looking at so much what they're doing, you're kind of forgetting to tend to your own garden. And I do think there's an element of that. And yeah, on the annoying the fan base aspect, it will create less patience for some of the changes he's trying to do in certain quarters. And I do think he'll be seized upon a little bit quicker, as he has been recently with some of the results. But it's the old expression, what is it about breaking eggs to make an omelette? At Tottenham Hotspur, honestly, I think I'm so bored at the kind of just the way Spurs have been for so long now. If there's someone coming in saying, this is all a load of rubbish, I need to change this, I'm kind of behind that. I think I am. I mean, we're in the ridiculous situation where Postecoglou on Sunday, when it gets to that final whistle at Sheffield United, will be the first manager, unless I'm mistaken, to complete a full season in charge at Spurs in the last half a decade. Because that doesn't say everything about the way this football club has been. I don't know what does. I mean, that's just... I just kind of sat down and was like, no. And I went through it and I was like, oh my goodness, it is. It's Poch 18-19 season is the last time a Spurs manager did a full season. It's a club that needs someone to absolutely go in there and kind of pull it apart, really, and rebuild it. And that's exactly what he wants to do. I found a quote that he said it was a couple of weeks ago. I think it was one of the Pressers Europe guests when I was away. And it said everything. It kind of almost foresaw what we've kind of in now. He said, change is difficult. It's relentless. It's uncompromising. It's challenging. It doesn't leave you a lot of leeway to feel comfortable. It's part of that process. And my job is to navigate through that. It's exactly what he's doing right now. He's going to upset people in the crowd, in the fan base. He's going to upset people behind the scenes. He's going to upset players. There's going to be players that leave this summer that are perfectly fine players, and we all wonder, or some of us wonder maybe why they're going. But he has to change the norm. I think he actually said this in his first press conference after he was appointed. It was like, sometimes you've just got to change for the sake of change because something's been the norm for so long and it hasn't worked. So honestly, I'm 100% behind it. And yes, the second half of the season has not been as good as the first. Of course it hasn't. We can see that. I do think there's a lot to do with that. I think the injuries absolutely destroyed the rhythm of the team. And I think they've kind of been chasing their tail since. Players like Maddison, players like Bentancur haven't been the same. Basuma hasn't been the same. That's 3 key people in the centre of the park that haven't been the same. I think they've lost a lot of attacking players that could have helped them over the course of this season. Even like the supporting characters like Perisic and Solomon, like people like that you've then got to come into a team and completely change your attack and give you more options. I do think there's so many excuses they could kind of fall back on, although I don't think he will. I still think 5th place after the utter garbage that was last season, and the departure of a certain player, on the eve of the first game of the season. I know we've said infinite times, but I still think he's done a remarkable job with all of that going on. And yeah, I mean, Guesty and we've done so many articles on Postecoglou and what he's done over the years, and one constant in everything. First season, upsets a load of people, makes lots of changes. There's real rocky moments during that first season. Second season, everyone's on board and they absolutely smash it. And so that's why he has this confidence. That's why he has almost an arrogance about the way he does stuff. Because he's been there and done it. He's 58 years old. He's not some rookie manager. People can knock down the clubs as much as they want that he's been at, in the leagues and all this sort of stuff. But it doesn't change the fact that there's a pattern to what he does, and every time it's worked.
Yeah, he's a winner. He's just no nonsense. If you're not on board, basically get out. And he's, for me, the right man for the job. And he was 100% correct with what he was saying on Tuesday night. And, hopefully we see a change going forward.
Did you see just out of interest, did you see the Guardiola quote about him after the game?
Yeah, basically he was saying, he's the right manager for
he
Spurs.
said,
Yeah,
he said they play with a lot of pride and intensity, and it's so difficult to play against them. Spurs will, in the future, be unbelievable if they stick with the manager. Honestly, he can see the threat. He can see what Spurs can become. Guardiola.
Let's be honest. If we were firing on all cylinders in the front 3 like we were earlier in the season, I think we win that game on Tuesday.
Yeah, but I think you have a more consistent, maybe like a goal scorer up there, who's not going to get injured. Like, unfortunately, Richarlison has probably too much this season. I think Spurs are up there in these final weeks of the season. I'm confident of that. I think they'd be up there challenging.
Yeah, and I thought the scoreline just totally harsh on Spurs as well. It wasn't a 2-0 game to City. I thought Spurs deserved something from it, but unfortunately, didn't get over the line in the end. Before we speak more about the game, obviously we're halfway through the podcast, so we're going to have to talk about the benefits of using NordVPN. Ali, I believe you've been using it out in Sweden to watch EastEnders last night.
Whoa, that came out of the blue. No, I was going to say the irony is I'm doing one of chatting about Nord, and I am abroad, but actually I haven't needed to use it yet. I did use it in bits while I was in Croatia on holiday a couple of weeks back. It
was Coronation Street instead, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, I'm not a soap man. I got subjected as a child to a lot of Coronation Street by my mother, who adored it, and that has absolutely put me off soaps for life because it was our every night TV. So no, unfortunately, I'm not a soap man, but certainly NordVPN is part of my existence, and it is something that I use a fair bit actually when I go abroad. And yeah, I even the other day had a message from someone saying to thank us because they just signed up for it, and it had been really helpful on a trip that they'd gone on. Because it is something that you can use wherever you are in the world, or even if you're in the UK, if you want to access things that are across the world. It works in different ways. And, of course, you'll know by now, or you should know, that the Golden Guest Talks on the podcast is sponsored by NordVPN, and you can use the service in this host of different ways. It's the fastest VPN in the world. It means there's no buffering, there's no lagging, and you can stream your favorite shows from anywhere in the world without your bandwidth throttling. The amount of times I say bandwidth throttling, it's not the most easy sentence to say, but it's true. Your bandwidth does not throttle with NordVPN, and it is a service I've used many, many times, whether it be to watch my shows from back home when I'm abroad, or from maybe booking things from at home when I want to book them from abroad. Sometimes it can be cheaper to do that. For example, you might want to book let's say, flights to another country, but you could maybe book them from that other country by switching your location to being in that country using NordVPN. It's really helpful for security aspects as well. If you're using public Wi-Fi, it can be very helpful in certainly to a degree, making your phone safer for those nasty people that want to get stuff. And yeah, it's just a really excellent service. And while you're paying out for Nord, you are actually saving money overall. And there's a whole host of other benefits I'm not even touching on, which are worth kind of checking up when you go to NordVPN's website. I mean, why not give it a go? You can grab an exclusive NordVPN deal as part of our podcast by going to nordvpn.com/goldguest to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan, plus 4 additional months for free. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee.
Right, let's get a bit more into the Man City game. What did you make of Ange's team selection, Lee? Because I certainly had people talking ahead of the game with Brennan Johnson and Son Heung-min wide, and then it was a bit of a false 9 role, really, for Pat Matasar and James Maddison, who were interchanging, and Pat Matasar did well in that role. Caused City quite a few problems early on with his running.
He did, yeah. I messaged Ali when the team news came out and said, "Is that Maddison in a false 9, or is that Sonny through the middle and Maddison on the left?" And Ali came back and said he thought it was Maddison on the left. And then when we watched it, my son, like within 2 minutes, like, "Is Pat Matasar playing up front?" And I said, "Well, let's just see how it pans out."
People in Spurs thought it was Maddison on the left as well. So it was kind of everyone's surprise. It was a great move.
It was. It would unexpected because, yeah, I didn't want to respond to my son and say, let's just wait and see how it pans out first. I'm not, but it did seem like Sarr was the one that was playing in that false 9 role essentially more than most. And yeah, I thought he did a very good job of it. I was just left a little bit frustrated at times during the match when we've turned the ball over in midfield and we've got in the transition and to do the counter attack and just slowed down when we got towards the edge of the box rather than really pushing and going and trying to get a runner in behind, a Timo Werner runner in behind potentially. We were lacking in the game, and a Richarlison obviously through the middle. But yeah, Van de Ven at left back, I think everyone was kind of clamouring to see him at left back because Emerson Royale's not been particularly good when he's been playing there.
What did you think of Mickey Van de Ven?
I thought he did all right. I don't think he was brilliant, but I thought he did all right. You lose what you get from him in the centre, don't you, by pushing him out onto the left. He made a couple of good runs down the left, I thought, but he's not used to it. So he's not going to be
knackered. After half an hour, he was knackered. I watched him at one point, hunched over, like gulping for air, and he even told someone not to pass to him. He was so tired. He just has to run more, and you don't do that as a centre back.
He's expected to make those swift dart backs to get back into position.
Yeah, it was an interesting one with Van de Ven. It did. It was. I get it, and I get why the fans wanted to play there. I understood it entirely, but I also fully understood Postecoglou and talking about his hamstrings because you don't want to lose him long term at all because he's been so important, and I think we've been quite consistent in saying we didn't really want to lose him from that centre back role. Although
I was going to say. The one benefit of it was Radu Dragosan's performance, wasn't it?
Yeah, go on. Wax lyrical about Radu Dragosan because I'm happy to talk about him as well in a bit.
I think you would poison Guesty for this, so go on, Guesty.
Yeah, go on, Guesty. Go for it. You're a big Radu fan.
Yeah, just before I get onto Dragosan, I was saying to you Monday, I think it made sense for Van de Ven to play at left back in this game against it because he couldn't have played Oliver Skip there against City's threat down the right flank, and I think it was probably either Van de Ven or Emerson, and you don't really want to take him away from his centre back role. I thought he did okay there, but just not used to the demands of it. And I mean, there was so much space for Kyle Walker at times. He just didn't have the necessary support there, really, because Walker got into some really good positions in the first half. Probably should have done better with his final ball, but yeah, I think the one benefit from it was Radu Dragosan, being handed his third start in the Tottenham shirt. Not really been an easy time for him at Spurs since that move from Genoa, where he's been playing week in, week out. I think that was his 7th or 8th appearance for Spurs. 3 of those from the start. He did get a decent amount of, minutes away at Aston Villa in March when they won 4-0. But when he has been coming on, it's literally been for the closing stages. And, this is why he moved to the Premier League, to play against the Premier League's best. And I thought he probably was Tottenham's best player on the night. I thought Bentancur was really good. Obviously hampered by that yellow card, but Dragishin, some, vital contributions, most notably a tackle on Erling Haaland outside the penalty box when he looked like he was going to get the better of Mickey van der Ven. A crucial header as well to stop Haaland running through on goal. And then there was that fantastic headed block from Bernardo Silva's shot, what looked destined for the net. And he celebrated, like he scored himself. Vicario was patting him on the back, applauding him. Pierre-Emile came in to hug him. And it was, unfortunately, it was one of these that the flag went up anyway. But I mean, that didn't really, take away from, that contribution, because it was a big moment for him, and he probably needed that in the Tottenham shirt because he's just not had those regular opportunities. But I thought
Vicario almost gave him whiplash though.
Yeah,
when he came, he steamed in and whacked him in the back, and he's and he's a big guy, Dragishin, but he flew forward.
Yeah, even in the second half, I think straight away won the ball off Kevin De Bruyne in the far corner of the pitch. He just carried on. I thought he was really, really good. And I think with Tottenham being in the Europa League next season, there's going to be a lot more opportunities for him, especially with the Carabao Cup and FA Cup. You'd be hoping Spurs can go to the latter stages of those competitions. But for the player himself, he's going to want to be playing week in, week out in the Premier League. And Ange has 3 really good centre-backs on the books. You don't really want to break up the Romero and Van der Ven partnership, but at least, everyone knows now that he's a really good defender to come in, and he'll just be looking to carry on. Question marks over whether he starts against Sheffield United, though. Whether Ange might change it, I don't know. But he certainly deserves to start again for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's fitness-wise, I suppose, where Van der Ven's at. And I think you're right. I think you're spot on. I think over the course of the entire game, I think Dragishin probably was the best player. Bentancur was brilliant for a long period, but yeah, I mean, we'll talk about him in a moment. He was utterly compromised by that yellow card. But I thought Dragishin, that was the performance. That, for me, that was almost like his calling card. Here I am. This is what you've got. Because you're right, he was doing it against the best players, like some of the best in the Premier League then. And De Bruyne's movement's amazing. Haaland as well. Silva and Foden would sometimes drift over there as well. And he just looked so calm, composed, and it was just effortless for him. 22 years old. He made 4 tackles, 2 interceptions, won 1 aerial duel. And actually, that was the part that I liked. Although he didn't have to do it too much, I don't know about you, but I kind of felt set pieces wise, Spurs looked a lot better because, 2 aspects, I guess. One, Postecoglou, Dragishin. Postecoglou may have been a good header of the ball, I don't know, back in his left back days. But Dragishin was, before he came, he had the most, didn't he have one of the most headers or aerial duels in Serie A before he joined Spurs? So you've got someone that is a massive presence in the air. But then also, I guess, just by having Van der Ven as a left-back, you've got another big guy at the back for set pieces, naturally. Although I would say Van der Ven, for me, that's the biggest area I think he's got to improve. For a massive, tall guy, probably his heading ability isn't his strongest point. But just in terms of height, didn't really feel City threatened from many. I think maybe there was 1 chance from a set piece that I can remember. But overall, I thought Spurs looked quite good on those. I was really, really impressed with Dragishin. I thought that was a big kind of calling card for next season as well. Like you say, looks like there's going to be European football of some kind. Hopefully, just the point on Sunday will make sure of Europa League football in 5th place. And I think he will play a lot of games, and not to sound too kind of down about it, but Van der Ven or Romero will get injuries next season. They will. They both kind of have, and Van der Ven's hamstrings, we know, have had a few issues over the last couple of years. Romero does like a unfortunately timed injury or 2 once in a while, normally after international duty or coming up to international duty.
Or an unfortunately timed yellow card or red card.
Yes. Well, I think he's been pretty good discipline-wise, Romero. I do. I think that's probably one of the things I wouldn't criticise him for too much, Chelsea aside this season. But yeah, Dragusin's going to have a big part to play. This is why I saw. Did you see those stories like linking him to Napoli this summer?
Mhm.
I was like, how mad would Spurs have to be that you managed to secure? If I'm Radek Dragusin, I'm probably thinking I could have been at Bayern at this moment, playing week in, week out instead of Eric Dyer. But Spurs managed to get him. I think he's going to be a huge player for Spurs going forward. I was really, really impressed with him. And I mean, just talking about Bentancur, that for me, they were probably the two, as well as the false nine, and also I think Maddison on the whole being kind of a little bit more like his old self again, 2 games in a row. I thought Bentancur and Dragusin were the standouts for me. Bentancur's display rolled back the months to pre-cruciate ligament injury for me. He was so good. Everything Spurs did well with the ball, it all worked because of Bentancur. He just had the ball, used it, was rarely dispossessed at all. I kind of felt bad for Højbjerg in a way because in contrast, it just was like so glaring, the ability, like the technical ability on the ball in those tight moments. Højbjerg gave a lot to the game. I did actually feel work rate wise, he did a lot in stopping Man City in midfield. But he had 2 or 3 moments where he just gave them the ball. He sliced that one to Foden for the big chance that Vicario saved well. But it just showed how good Bentancur could be. But the yellow card just killed him. It really did. He lost all ability to put his foot into challenges. We saw it when he tried to track back with Foden and he kind of brushed against him and went like, oh no, put his hands up. I was like, I'm nowhere near him, ref, honest. And then just gave him so much space. And then, yeah, wow, the seat moment. The upholstery on that seat did not know what was coming. I've never seen a human being stud a seat quite like that. That was incredible. And it wasn't even just once. It was like about 3-4 times. He was like karate kicking almost the seat. Bryan Gil's face next to him was like, he was terrified. He was like, oh, I hope he doesn't come over to here.
I thought Bryan Gil was going to get it at one point.
Yeah, so did I. His eyes got so wide, and there was a moment when Bentancur sat down. It was really sweet. It was like he just Bryan Gil put his hand on his leg and just was like, "It's all right, it's okay, don't worry," kind of thing. And poor Tyrese Hall on the other side, like his massive kind of moment for him, his first time on the bench, and he's just looking like, "What is going on? Is this what happens in the first team? Because this is mad." But you know what? I kind of liked it in a weird way, because it showed a player that was so furious that he hadn't been able to contribute how he wanted in this game. It showed he cared about that match. And it wasn't towards Postecoglou or coming off, because he did make a real point of going over to Postecoglou and shaking his hand first, very much signifying it was not about kind of Postecoglou's decision. I think he just knew yellow card had killed him. And it was like just one of those kind of moments that, yeah, unfortunately defined the rest of his game when he'd been so good before.
It was an absolutely pointless yellow card tackle as well.
Yeah,
it was late. There was no need to make that tackle. Yeah, it seemed very stereotypical to me. He's got a skinhead and goes absolutely mad.
Wow. To all of those either follically challenged or shaved head people, Lee's views do not, we do not share all of Lee's views.
Yeah, I thought he was really good on the night, Bentancur. Certainly one of his best performances since he come back. I think probably the standout one for me prior to that was the Aston Villa game. When he started and unfortunately went off, he was absolutely fantastic in those 30
And at Old Trafford. I thought he was good at Old Trafford as well.
And like you said, it shows he cares. And that's what Ange said about the incident with Emerson and Christian Romero at Liverpool 2 weeks ago. He's just... You knew we were going to come off at some point, and just because of that yellow card, like you said, he just completely stuffed himself.
Did you see what Ange said when he was asked about Bentancur?
Yeah, I don't care. Basically,
he said, "Didn't notice, don't care."
yeah, it was. I thought he was good, and yeah, poor Bryan Gil putting his hand out and then having to withdraw it and then almost getting hit. But I thought with Bentancur, like you said, when he, didn't go fully in on third, and when he went past him and put his hands out, Christian Romero for me should have done a lot better there.
The pass was terrible. The attempted pass was dreadful as well.
Yeah, he just didn't seem to really like challenge him either when he went past, and usually he would, which, you know, fair play to Phil Foden, because that was really good play from him. They worked too well, and then he had a hand in the second goal as well with a fantastic ball out to Jeremy Doku. And like you said, I just thought that 2-0 scoreline was harsh on Spurs for how they played.
Yeah, no complaints with the penalty either, is there? It was just, Porro just getting caught out. Doku's one of those players. He reminds me a little bit of how Sané used to be, of that. There's an incredible player in there. He's maybe not fully realised it yet, but my goodness, he's so difficult to challenge. He's all like tricky feet and pace, and yeah, he's going to be a hell of a player. That's the scary thing when you're talking about trying to challenge teams like City, is they've got young players like that who are just going to get better and better. But yeah, no complaints about the penalty, and no one really moaned about it in the moment either. You could just tell. But Spurs should have done the business before that. You know, they forced the two City keepers into 6 saves. Vicario made 3, and Spurs had more possession on the day, far more passes on the day. I know that's not the be all and end all, but certainly the shots on goal they had more shots on goal. I mean, we kind of touched on it. What did you make of the Son moment, Lee?
Oh, it's just indicative of how he's been playing, I think, in the last few weeks. It's just he was the one that you wanted it to fall to. You wanted him running through on goal, and then he looked like he scuffed it. He tried one earlier in the match when he got in front of his man from a low cross from Brennan Johnson and tried to flick it over Ederson.
Yes.
And he was very unlucky that he just didn't quite get enough, because that was it. If he'd lifted the ball maybe an inch or two higher, that was in. And I just felt with Ortega out as far as he was, I thought he should have just lifted over Ortega as well. You never know what goes through strikers' heads when they run through on goal, do you? But I think that was the easier option, was to lift it over the goalkeeper and into the net on that occasion. But yeah, that was the chance to kind of get back in the match. And I thought we could have gone on. Well, it would have really opened up. What was that? 85 minutes, I think, on the clock when he ran through. So there was 15 minutes or so to go. After that, it would have been an exciting 15 minutes with City knowing they needed to score a goal, and potentially Spurs scoring a winner as well. So yeah, it was a shame really that he scuffed it.
I know everyone's saying it's like Son's miss and all this, but you know, credit to Ortega. That is such a good save. Really, really good save. Very similar to Emi Martinez in the World Cup final when he saved from Kolo Muani.
Yeah,
you know, with seconds left with his leg. That's like, it was a title-winning moment. And I know a lot of Arsenal fans have been saying you missed on purpose. I mean, come on, like, he genuine attempt there. You can see by his reaction he wanted to score. He was just one of these, just unlucky. It was just a really, really good save from the keeper.
Yeah, like you say, if people are going to reduce a title challenge down to one game, which they seem to be doing for this game, then absolutely that was a save that probably got City the title if they go on to win, because it was. And I think James Maddison said it after the game, to come in cold as a keeper and do that, you know. Ortega made that one from Kulusevski as well, when the ball kind of bobbled around between his legs. So I thought Kulusevski was positive in that role. He kind of came in as not quite a false 9. He kind of was playing as a 9 at times, while also drifting out. Yeah, the front two in terms of Son and Johnson kind of had mixed games. Both looked threats at different points, while not consistently. I think Brennan Johnson played 3 key passes. Maddison and Johnson had the most on the pitch, key passes. Maddison had 4, Johnson had 3. And I mean, you think about it, you mentioned there the pass to Sonny, actually both. Sonny's first chance and the big chance were both Johnson passes as well. He's kind of a bit like that. He can be very quiet. You don't hear from him, Johnson, and suddenly sets up a very big moment in a game. He's probably one of the ones I'm most excited about next season. I think he's laid a decent foundation for what comes next season. Not a fragile foundation, but a decent foundation. And I think with more work pre-season on him, because we can't forget that he didn't have a pre-season under Postecoglou. He will get that this summer. And he'll get a full one as well, isn't he? Because Wales not being at the Euros. So, yeah, I think I'm excited for him. And with Sonny, I agree. I don't think he's been himself probably since coming back from the Asian Cup. And I do think he hasn't been helped by playing mostly through the centre at times as well and switching position. But I mean, the guy, I just kind of called up his stats because it is ridiculous when we're saying that he hasn't had the greatest of seasons and he's got 26 goal involvements in 34 games. It's just mad. And that's a credit to him that even not playing at his best, he racks up the goals and assists. And it's not even like they're just pre. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's only 7 games since he came back from the Asian Cup when he hasn't scored or assisted in. He still has a remarkable record, really. 5 goals and 4 assists since he came back in those matches since. But yeah, there's something missing from that attack, and I think that's the big element in the summer they need to fix. It will be through I think another number 9, and also a winger or 2, because Postecoglou keeps saying it's the area of the most growth that he can see in the team that needs to happen. And yeah, nights like Tuesday night, that game's put to bed a lot earlier if you get proper kind of or consistent final third play up there.
Yeah. What did you make of those moments at the full-time whistle? Pep Guardiola going up to Christian Romero, giving him a couple of, punches in the chest. Romero did look a bit bashful, had a bit of smile on his face. Son and Maddison as well. I don't think those have gone down well with Ange, let's be honest.
No, I'm kind of glad he ran down the tunnel.
Yeah.
Ange stormed off down the tunnel, and I was quite happy about that because I watched those back and I was like, oh no, that is definitely feeding into narrative of this not being a massive game or result because, it was Romero. It was like they were kids in a playground. They were like playing. I know Pep does this. And also, there's no getting away from it. There's a bit of a kind of a luster and kind of glamour around Pep, isn't there? If Pep Guardiola is coming up to you and mug around, playing with you and all this sort of stuff, you're probably like, oh, it's Pep Guardiola, that kind of thing. You are, because he's class and he is one of the best managers in the world. And there's definitely a feeling of being flattered, no doubt, that it's happening. But it did not look good. I don't think it did. I thought all 3 of them, that's your 3 leaders of your team. That's your captain and 2 vice captains, and they're all laughing about and playing around with the opposition manager after losing a game that's ensured you don't get Champions League football next season, regardless of the talk around the game and regardless of who it was, the manager. And I know they're going to got to be polite. They can't push him away and run off or anything, but it looked, the aesthetic of it. Yeah, if I'm Postecoglou, I would have absolutely ripped into all 3 of them. I know some people might think that's incredibly harsh, but it just set a tone after the performance when the players had played so well. Especially Maddison and Romero on the day, both played pretty well. And yeah, I didn't like that. I might just be being a grouchy old man about it, but I just kind of felt, I don't know. What about you, Lee? What did you think?
It's one of those difficult things, isn't it? That, again, I'm talking about us journalists jumping on stuff like that. And we do jump on things like that. But I find it hard sometimes when little moments after matches are picked up. This person was smiling or this person was laughing. It's like, well, if someone's just told you a joke or just made you can't, no matter what's happened, you can't stop yourself, can you, sometimes? And then that moment's click, they don't take it seriously.
This is true.
I understand, but the optics, it doesn't look good. But yeah, I don't know. It's tough for me to really go in on them for bits and pieces like that, because in the moment when someone's chatting to you and something happens, you can quite easily, unless you're just doing this with your, like everyone does these days.
Oh, they always do that. The hand over the face thing. Yeah, it's not like they were all holding hands doing like ring a roses or something.
Showing your age there with ring a roses, I think.
Yeah, just a tad. Yeah.
I just don't know how you get yourself out of that situation as a player.
Run away. Run away. Yeah. Scream and run away.
There's not much you can do, is there? If Pep's got hold of you and giving you a couple of playful digs in the chest. and that really.
I don't think we'll probably ever know what that's like, I'm guessing, but yeah, we'll just judge from afar.
Yeah.
Yes. So, final game of the season, Sunday, Sheffield United away. Tottenham now can't get in the Champions League, but 1 point will guarantee them Europa League football. I mean, Sheffield United have had an absolute dire season back in the Premier League. I think it's 3 wins, 7 draws from 37 games, conceded 101 goals. I mean, this is the ideal opponents on the final day of the season, just to, wrap up a 5th place finish and, finish the campaign on a positive note.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just very quick before we move on, just because it was a really nice positive moment. Mikey Moore coming up was lovely. And that's just such a huge thing for a football club as a whole. And, and just the academy, knowing all the people that have worked with him, I suppose mainly Stuart Lewis with the under-18s. That's just, it's a wonderful thing. 16 years old. I mean, my good, me at 16 years old would never be able to handle the pressure of coming into a game of that magnitude against Man City. It was incredible. And he actually did quite well. Had 1 clearance out of his own box. And what I loved about it, and forgive me for who I'm kind of referencing here, but it reminds me of what people used to say about John Terry when he was a teenager, in that even though he was so young, you would see him on the pitch telling everyone what to do, pointing and telling them where to pass and everything. And that was what Mikey Moore was doing. I noticed that straight off. He was pointing away and shouting at quite senior players in the Spurs side, telling them where to put the ball. And I love that. It shows a player who, some players are so nervous at that age when they get on the pitch and they're worried about what's their own performance. But he came out there trying to sort the whole team out. And I thought that was lovely. Huge moment for him, a huge moment for the club. First of many, I hope, for Mikey Moore. Still got a hell of a long way to go. This is not a guy that's going to be starting matches week in, week out. He is just 16 years old. I think he turns 17 in August, I think, which presumably it will come with his first pro deal. I think that triggers when they're about 17, the one he signed previously. Spurs actually wanted to take him out to Melbourne. That was the plan, but I think they've actually relented now and they're going to let him go with England to the under-17 Euro Championships. So he's going to play there. I think they're keeping him a little bit longer than they normally would so he can be part of Sunday's game. And you would imagine maybe get some more minutes depending on the scoreline. But from what I understand, I think he will probably, barring injury, go on the pre-season tour to Japan and Korea, which we're waiting to be confirmed, the second part of that. But yeah, massive moment for him. And hopefully we do see him against Sheffield United. As you say, he's got to finish the season on a high now, secure that 5th place. You then end up 6 points more than last season. Various stats better than last season as well. Goals scored, certainly. Probably goals conceded. What do they end up with, goals conceded? I know they were on exactly the same 2 games ago. Let me have a look while I'm talking. But yeah, I think that's the key, is to show progress, which I think they have. Well, they conceded 61 goals. Last season, they conceded 63. Okay, so you've got to concede no more than 1 goal, and at least that they've still bettered the goals conceded column as well. But yeah, finish on a high, get some goals for a fair few players. It can't really change it up too much. There's not really many kind of changes he can make, is there?
Unless he wants to bring Kulusevski into the team.
Yeah.
If you're going to drop one of the midfielders, is it Højbjerg is the one who,
probably, yeah,
makes way. I mean, there's not much you can really do with the defence unless you want to put Mickey van der Ven back at, left-sided centre back.
Hopefully Bentancur hasn't broken his foot or anything.
But yeah, in terms of the rest of the team, I think that's pretty much it. It'd be nice to see Dane Scarlett get a few more minutes, because he did well in the previous game against Burnley. And the same goes for Mikey Moore, and maybe you see a bit more of Tyrese Hall if he's in the squad this time.
A Bryan Gil farewell, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I'm sure.
Brian.
I'm sure Giovanni Lo Celso will get his customary 2 minutes as well at the end.
Yeah. What do you think of the whole Lo Celso stuff, Lee?
It's just I don't know really. It's
It feels like there's more to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does feel like there's a bit more to it. I think I said in a reporters team lineup we did a few weeks ago that I'd like to see him in that role because Maddison wasn't performing particularly well, Kulusevski wasn't performing particularly well, and it's kind of like, well, there's another guy that can play in that number 10 role. Why are we not giving him a chance? So yeah, it looks like he's being phased out. Ange has said, hasn't he, already this season that he knows there's certain players that don't want to conform to his way of thinking, his philosophy, and he will be making changes in the summer. So I think we can probably name quite a few of those players that we expect to be out the door this summer, and Lo Celso is probably
Name them.
I'm not going to name them right now.
Yeah,
I think Lo Celso is probably one of them.
Yeah, he's part of the 1 year left crew on the contracts, and I think it's interesting because they did used to say about him that he would be not quite difficult, but wasn't the same kind of person around the camp when he wasn't getting picked. But then I was told that it kind of changed a lot this season. He'd kind of matured and grown up a lot. So maybe that isn't a reason, but it just feels like a parting of the ways is almost upon us. And a player that I think Spurs will get reasonable money for as well. But absolutely would have liked to have seen him used a bit more. But maybe there's more to it. Maybe Ange, I get the impression he's not the kind of person that does reveal stuff like that. But I'd be intrigued to know why it hasn't really worked out.
It's going to be an interesting summer, both in and out, isn't it?
Yeah,
definitely. He did a nice Instagram post last night, Lo Celso, about the final home game of the season. Yeah, it was our last home game. Proud of this team and especially proud of our fans for their support throughout a never easy season. You make a massive difference to me. And then the comment section was just full of Spurs fans saying, please stay. So,
yeah. How that's changed, eh?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just, he should have been playing more, really, especially when other players' form has dipped, like most notably James Maddison, because you see him as the Maddison alternative to come in when Maddison's either injured or not playing well. And it's just not really happened for him, even though he has had some bright cameo appearances and probably deserves better than he gets. But yeah, I think he'll be one of those to be heading out of the door in the summer.
There was some talk of a new contract. I didn't see who it was. Someone did a report suggesting there might be a little, like even just a 2-year extension. If I'm Lo Celso, that would be insane. Oh, I like Lo Celso, but do not sign that because that would be crazy. You'd end up just in the same position for another 2 years. And if I'm Spurs, for a player I signed half a decade ago, who's barely played the games to warrant half a decade at a club, I think it is unfortunately just that point where everyone needs to go their separate ways.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. So it does look like Spurs are going to be in the Europa League next season, barring an absolute nightmare in South Yorkshire on Sunday afternoon. I think Europa League's a good competition to go into. I've seen in past few years some good teams in there as well. So final in Bilbao in May 2025. Great city.
You booked your tickets already?
Yeah, road to Bilbao. It's like the road to Tirana all over again.
It's a little bit different to the road to Tirana. I did think the whole Europa League narrative also played a bit of a part on Tuesday night because there's this feeling, isn't there, that it's a better competition to be in for Spurs because no Champions League teams drop down next season into it because of the new format, and so it's more winnable. I would say this is Tottenham Hotspur. To assume Tottenham Hotspur will win any competition is a massive leap in this current generation of the club. Who knows? It might. Yeah, we might be on the road to Bilbao. That would be lovely. But I did think it's. I don't think we can be fussy about which competitions Spurs get into or don't get into. Just kind of take what we can get, really.
Premier League, Europa League double next year.
Really? I genuinely think Spurs will be top 3 next season in the Premier League. I think we'll be looking back on kind of now and then realising, oh yeah, that was kind of the moment when Ange decided that's that, we're done, and ripped up everything and started properly. Yeah, I do. But Europa League, yeah, that'd be lovely. I mean, imagine Bilbao will be quite warm at this time of year as well next year if we're able to go. Although I don't think it could be as hot as was it Madrid for the year 2019? That was roasting, wasn't it?
It was. Right, I think that's it for today's latest episode of Golden Guest Tottenham. So thank you for listening in. I think it'll be myself and Lee back Monday or Tuesday next week, as you'll be in Melbourne or still in the
Yes.
air, maybe.
I don't know where my body clock will be at that point, but yes.
Right, so thanks for listening in. Just keep with us at football.london for all your latest Tottenham news. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/goldguest. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, and you'll help support our podcast. The link is in the episode description box.